King Laius of Thebes was the third in descendant from Cadmus. He married a distant cousin, Jocasta. With their reign, Apollo's oracle at Delphi began to play a leading part in the family's fortunes. Apollo was the god of truth. Whatever the priestess at Delphi said would happen infallibly come to pass. To attempt to act in such a way that the prophecy be made void was as futile as to set oneself against the decrees of fate. Nevertheless, when the oracle warned Laius that he would die at the hands of his son, he determined that this should not be. When the child was born, he bound its feet together and had it exposed on a lonely mountain, where it must soon die. He felt no more fear. He was sure that on this point he could foretell the future better than the god. His folly was not brought home to him. He was killed indeed, but he thought the man who attacked him was a stranger. He never knew that in his death he had proved Apollo's truth. When he died, he was away from home, and many years had passed since the baby had been left on the mountain. It was reported that a band of robbers had slain him together with attendants, all except one, who brought the news home. The matter was not carefully investigated because Thebes was in sore straits at the time. The country around was beset by a frightful monster, the Sphinx. The Sphinx was a creature shaped like a winged lion, but with the breast and face of a woman. She lay in wait for the wayfarers along the road to the city, and whomever she seized, she put a riddle to, telling him if he could answer it, she would let him go. No one could, and the horrible creature devoured man after man until the city was in a state of siege. The 7 great gates, which were the Thebians' pride, remained closed, and famine drew near the citizens. So matters stood when there came into a stricken country a stranger, a man of great courage and great intelligence, whose name was Oedipus. He had left home, Corinth, where he was held to be the son of the king, Polybus, and the reason for his self-exile was another Delphic oracle. Apollo had declared he was fated to kill his father. He, too, like Laius, thought to make it impossible for the oracle to come true. He resolved never to see Polybus again. In his lonely wanderings, he came into the country around Thebes, and he heard what was happening there. He was a homeless, friendless man to whom life meant little, and he determined to seek the Sphinx out and try to solve the riddle. "What creature," the Sphinx asked him, "goes on 4 feet in the morning, on 2 at noonday, and 3 in the evening?" "Man," answered Oedipus. "In childhood he creeps on hands and feet. In manhood he walks erect. In old age he helps himself with a staff." It was the right answer. The Sphinx, inexplicably but most fortunately, killed itself. The Thebans were saved. Oedipus gained all and more than he had left. The grateful citizens made him their king, and he married the dead king's wife, Jocasta. For many years, they lived happily. It seemed that in this case, Apollo's words had been proved to be false. But when their 2 sons had grown to manhood, Thebes was visited by a terrible plague. A blight fell upon everything. Not only were men dying throughout the country, the flocks and herds and the fruits of the field were blasted as well. Those who were spared death by disease faced death by famine. No one suffered more than Oedipus. He regarded himself as the father of the whole state. The people in it were his children. The misery of each one was his too. He dispatched Jocasta's brother Creon to Delphi to implore the gods' help. Creon returned with good news. Apollo had declared that the plague would be stayed upon one condition: whoever had murdered King Laius must be punished. Oedipus was enormously relieved. Surely the men or the man could be found even after all these years, and they would know well how to punish him. He proclaimed to the people gathered to hear the message Creon brought back. "Let no one of this land give shelter to him. Bar him from your homes, as one defiled, accompanied by pollution, and I solemnly pray, may he who killed wear out his life in evil, being evil." Oedipus took the matter in hand with energy. He sent for Tiresias, the old blind prophet, the most revered of Thebans. Had he any means of finding out, he asked him who the guilty were. To his amazement and indignation, the seer at first refused to answer. "For the love of God," Oedipus implored him, "if you have knowledge." "Fools," Tiresias said. "Fools, all of you. I will not answer." But when Oedipus went so far as to accuse him of keeping silence because he himself had taken part in the murder, the prophet in his turn was angered, and words he had meant never to speak fell heavily from his lips. "You are yourself the murderer, you speak." To Oedipus, the old man's mind was wandering. What he said was sheer madness. He ordered him out of sight, never to appear before him again. Jocasta, too, treated the assertion with scorn. "Neither prophets nor oracles have any sure knowledge," she said. She told her husband how the priestess at Delphi had prophesied that Laius should die at the hand of his son, and how he and she together had seen to it that this should not happen by having the child killed. And Laius was murdered by robbers, where 3 roads met on the way to Delphi. She concluded triumphantly. Oedipus gave her a strange look. "When did this happen?" he asked slowly. "Just before you came to Thebes," she said. "How many were with him?" Oedipus asked. "There were 5 in all," Jocasta spoke quickly. "All killed but 1. "I must see that man," he told her. "Send for him." "I will," she said. "At once. But I have a right to know what is in your mind." "You shall know all that I know," he answered. "I went to Delphi just before I came here because a man had flung it in my face that I was not the son of Polybus. I went to ask the god. He did not answer me, but he told me horrible things. That I should kill my father, marry my mother, and have children men would shudder to look upon. I never went back to Corinth. On my way home from Delphi, at a place where 3 roads met, I came upon a man with 4 attendants. He tried to force me from the path. He struck me with a stick. Angered, I fell upon them, and I killed them." Could it be the leader that was Laius? "The one man left alive brought back a tale of robbers," Jocasta said. "Laius was killed by robbers, not by his son, the poor innocent who died upon the mountain." As they talked, further proof seemed to give to them that Apollo could speak falsely. A messenger came from Corinth to announce to Oedipus the death of Polybus. "O oracle of the god," Jocasta cried. "Where are you now? The man died, but not by his son's hand." The messenger smiled wisely. "Did the fear of killing your father drive you from Corinth?" he asked. "Ah, king, you were in error. You never had reason to fear, for you were not the son of Polybus. He brought you up as though you were his, but he took you from my hands." "Where did you get me?" Oedipus asked. "Who are my father and mother? I know nothing of them," the messenger said. "A wandering shepherd gave you to me, the servant of Laius." Jocasta turned white. A look of horror was on her face. "Why waste a thought upon what such a fellow says?" she cried. "Nothing he says can matter." She spoke hurriedly yet fiercely. Oedipus could not understand her. "My birth does not matter?" he asked. "For God's sake, go no further," she said. "My misery is enough." She broke away and rushed into the palace. At that moment, an old man entered. He and the messenger eyed each other curiously. "The very old man, O king," the messenger cried. "The shepherd who gave you to me." "And you?" Oedipus asked the other. "Do you know him as he knows you?" The old man did not answer, but the messenger insisted. "You must remember, you gave me once a little child you had found, and the king here is that child." "Curse you!" the other muttered. Hold your tongue. What? Oedipus said angrily. You will conspire with him to hide from me what I desire to know? There are ways to be sure, to make you speak. The old man wailed. Oh, don't hurt me. I did give him the child, but do not ask more, master, for the love of God. If I have to order you a second time to tell me where you got him, you are lost, Oedipus said. Ask your lady, the old man cried. She can tell you. She gave him to you? Asked Oedipus. Oh yes, the other groaned. I was to kill a child. There was a prophecy. A prophecy? Oedipus repeated. That he should kill his father? Yes, the old man whispered. A cry of agony came from the king. At last he understood. All true! Now shall my light be changed into darkness. I am accursed! He had murdered his father. He had married his father's wife, his own mother. There was no help for him, for her, for their children. All were accursed. Within the palace, Oedipus wildly sought for his wife that was his mother. He found her in her chamber. She was dead. When the truth broke upon her, she had killed herself. Standing beside her, he too turned his hand against himself, but not to end his life. He changed his light to darkness. He put out his eyes. Blood seeped from the cold, wet, gaping pores in his face. And the black world of blindness was a refuge. Better be there than to see with strange, shamed eyes the old world that had been so bright.